Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to my talk today called Gone Tishing. Today I will be talking about abusing Microsoft Teams security misconfigurations for webhook hijacking and taking those webhooks to do some other fun shenanigans. So without further ado, let's dive in. A little bit about me. I'm a red teamer in healthcare. I'm an information security testing analyst or penetration tester at a healthcare company in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Some of my research interests include the cloud and IoT security. Specifically in the cloud, I like to do offensive attacks. And then when I talk about IoT, it's more DEF CON badge life. So I like to do that when I'm not doing my web app tests throughout the year. Something I like to do in my free time is I'm a yoga instructor and runner, and I'm also a dog parent. So since I am talking about a dog, I wanted to include a picture of him. This is Atlas. I chose this picture because he's centered in the screen, but yeah. If you like my talk today, feel free to give me a follow on Twitter or LinkedIn. In addition, if you have any questions. Before I begin my talk, I want to do a little brief overview of what I'm going to be talking about today. So beginning with the background, what functionalities within Teams cause the vulnerability I'm going to discuss, the vulnerability itself, what is it, and then how can we use this vulnerability to exploit Teams and create a phishing engagement, which is super exciting. After I go into that exploit, I'm going to talk about some detection and prevention procedures. So we have this exploit, what can we do to prevent it? And then just a conclusion of why do a Teams phishing engagement versus the normal email type of engagement at your company, and some pros and cons there. So to begin, team connectors. What team connectors are that it's a functionality within Teams that allows you to integrate third-party applications. When I talk about applications, think about like ServiceNow, GitHub, or Jenkins. Something, say, if a developer wants notifications for within Teams, connectors allow those notifications to be sent into Teams. Kind of a more formal definition here would be to deliver third-party content or service updates into a team channel. But it's a really cool functionality that a lot of real organizations use. I included a screenshot to the left here of a test channel and how to kind of see the different connectors that are within that channel. And then to the right are some different options. So yeah, you can see what's configured within the channel and also some other things you can add. Since we're talking about connectors, these connectors use something called webhooks. These webhooks can kind of be thought of as a URL token or secret. So when a developer is integrating a third-party application within a certain channel, this webhook kind of serves as that means of communication. So if they are configuring, saying, like a GitHub notification into their development channel, this webhook kind of is the security that says, this is the GitHub project, and this is the channel that I want to send my notifications to. Again, a more formal definition would be a user-defined HTTP callback that communicates real-time data into Teams. So if a developer makes a change within a GitHub environment, that would be communicated in real time into their channel. So say if they push to prod and they're not supposed to push to prod, all of the developers would know because that notification would be sent into Teams. Usually there's a link here that they can click that would redirect them to the change that was made. And again, just not to sound repetitive, but they're kind of work with the connectors to allow external web services to interact with channels. And some popular use cases here, like I mentioned, would be the developer system maintenance notifications that is made within a development team or environment, you often see like Jenkins, Bitbucket, ServiceNow, but really a lot of different third-party applications that someone could use for development. And this right here is just a screenshot of what an incoming webhook would look like that has been configured within a channel. So you see like the name, I just use third-party notification, but if you're using something like GitHub or Jenkins, it would be like Jenkins prod update or something. You can upload an image, and right here where you see the view webhook here text, that would actually be your secret. So that would be the URL that someone would use, or the webhook that would show GitHub and show channels that this is the correct means of communication. And this screenshot also shows how these connectors work with webhooks together to help these third-party applications work for developers and improve their development process. So what do you think the vulnerability here is, and how can it occur? The answer's in the meme. So I'll give everyone a few seconds to kind of think about it. So we have a webhook that communicates between these third-party apps in a channel that sends notifications. A lot of people are seeing these notifications. So kind of thinking about that. It's a secret, so think, do we really want everyone to see this webhook here? So the vulnerability would actually be the default configurations. So in Microsoft Teams, the default configuration would be anyone that has access to these channels could actually see that webhook. So say if there's an insider threat or someone's credentials were stolen, they can actually go in and steal this webhook and do some shenanigans with it, which is really concerning. And often the people who are integrating these webhooks within Teams don't think about that. So they just have this default configuration that allows anyone in the organization or channel to view it. And right here is just a kind of a demo of how someone can go in and steal a webhook that is integrated within Teams. So this is a test channel and kind of letting it run through one more time. But see, they can go easily just go into configured and see all the different webhooks that are configured. Click managed, scroll down. Obviously, I'm not showing the secret here, but where it says copy the URL below, that would be the webhook. And if you would like to see a full kind of page screenshot of this, the full screenshot is in slide 6. So when the slides are posted, go ahead and give it a look if you're interested. So then you can just copy and paste the URL from this page, and now you have a token. So now what? You have this secret that communicates a notification, third-party application notification within a Teams channel environment. So what can you do with it? Actually, a lot of things. So in this instance, I made a credential harvester because I knew that a lot of developers probably had escalated privileges that maybe would allow me to see source code or other secrets within a organization. So I thought, why not make this a credential harvester? So if I create a message that looks legitimate, they'll click the link, send them to a, say, sign-in page, and I would get their credentials from there to do some other bad stuff. So that was the idea here when I found that these webhooks were exposed to me as an insider threat. Right here is just an example. So the upper screenshot is a screenshot from Postman, where you see the post and the text that says hijacked webhook pasted here. That's where I put the webhook that I stole to make sure that I was communicating with the correct channel. In this case, the channel I wanted to communicate with was a ServiceNow channel that sent ServiceNow notifications. The little highlighted red box is a URI to the phishing landing page I created, or the credential harvester. And then the below screenshot is what it actually looked like within a Teams channel. So I would say it looked pretty legitimate. If I was a maintenance team member or a developer, I wouldn't think twice, and I would just click that view change request in ServiceNow and give in some of my credentials. And then going into how I created the landing page or the credential harvester, I used an open source toolkit called GoFish. GoFish was really cool. It allowed me to create this kind of fake Microsoft sign-in page. And what's really cool about GoFish is that even though it was made for email, it can actually be, since it's open sourced, changed to be customized to whatever you need. So for this instance, I customized it to be to just give me that URI that I can send in my Postman requests. Another really cool thing about GoFish is it does data analytics. So it told me who clicked the link, who submitted credentials, and then if I wanted to, I could see the credentials. Since this was a corporate environment, I did not go with that option because in GoFish, those credentials are sent over clear plain text. You can also go in and have it show you, go in and configure it to show you the specific IPs that click the link, which is another really cool feature of this tool I used. So after I sent these messages within Teams, what did I do, right? So we found a successful attack vector for phishing. Now what? You really just have to wait. You have to wait and see what type of results you get and what comes out of it. Initially, the messages I first sent looked very, very similar, pretty much exactly like a normal message, which didn't get too many clicks from the developers since there's usually so many that are sent throughout the day. So I kind of took this information I got and started sending purposely suspicious looking messages to kind of see how people would react and what would happen. Fortunately, when I did start sending these messages, people caught on and were able to report it and kind of conclude the engagement. So if you decide to do this at your organization, just know that the detection might be a little different within Teams because it's not something people are looking for, but you can always adjust it and customize it to fit your needs or your goals of this social engineering engagement. And now that we've talked about how we've done this whole attack and what allowed it to happen, let's dive into some solutions. So let's first begin with detection. So phishing or Teams phishing notifications are actually very similar to detect to phishing emails. So something you'd want to look out for is any misspellings. Also in the link domain, if it looks not right, that is another thing that shows if it's phishing. And then also if the certificate isn't legitimate, that's a really big red flag. So kind of leading into prevention. So when you are doing your employee security awareness trainings, teaching employees that phishing can occur outside the email inbox. It can actually occur anywhere, like in Teams. And I feel like a lot of employees just trust Teams, but they also should be aware that these kind of attacks can still happen. Another method for prevention is doing a reporting process or something called a see something, say something protocol. So usually a phishing email is super easy to report within Outlook. There's a little functionality for it, but this is a little different. So creating a procedure where if someone at the company sees something just suspicious looking, allowing them to report it easily to the security team so it can be fixed. And the last point here is to just watch for misconfigurations. Since this was a default configuration, it is a very common one. So making sure that it doesn't exist within your team's environment, and then also just making sure that that webhook URL or token isn't laying laying around anywhere for everyone to see, which is super bad, as you just saw with the engagement and example I gave. And then just going into some similarities and differences between a phishing Teams engagement versus a email phishing engagement. So like what I said before, the similarities is the detection and reporting. The same way a phishing Teams message is very similar to Outlook, those misspellings, the faulty certificate, all those things that you would usually see in a phishing email. And they can also both be used for security awareness trainings, which is really awesome when you are doing that for your organization. But some of the differences, phishing Teams messages require an insider threat or a compromised credentials. But for a phishing email, you just need to know the organization's email domain. Another difference is in Teams, when you send those messages, they look very legitimate, and those developers aren't going to be given a warning that it's coming from an external source. But in Outlook, they are. So I feel like Outlook and those emails are a lot easier to detect because there is that warning for them. This is especially true if you are sending a Teams notification and that landing page has a certificate. Usually the browser will not warn the employee, so they would believe that it's a real sign-in page and give their credentials. What else? And then also detection is far less likely in a Teams environment just because most employees aren't informed of it, unless it looks obviously fake. And then lastly, the phishing Teams engagement takes a lot longer because you do have to go in and customize that landing page to fit your needs within GoPhish. And you also have to do the research of how to even steal the webhook and all of that. And just kind of like, why get creative with red team phishing engagements? So why choose to do a Teams phishing engagement versus the usual email phishing engagement for your organization? You do find other vulnerabilities. So in this instance, I found that misconfiguration and then also just the webhooks that are lying around. You get to test unconventional reporting procedures. So say if an employee sees something suspicious, it shows, it tests like how would they report it to the security team, which is really nice. And this doesn't just apply to the phishing messages within Teams, but if they just see something suspicious in an environment, how would they report it? It gets to test that. You get to learn more about potential open source tools to use for your organization. So in this case, I got to learn more about GoPhish, which made phishing engagements a lot easier for me versus doing it all on my own. And then you also get to challenge your red team. So if you tell your red team to create a new phishing engagement, it allows them to have a lot of creativity there that is outside of their annual penetration tests. So it's super fun. And who doesn't want to challenge the red team? Am I right? So those are all of my like supporting points that promote doing a creative phishing engagement versus the annual email phishing that most employees already know how to look out for. And then just moving on to the last slide here, if you have any questions, my Twitter and LinkedIn are on the introduction page. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to my talk today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your B-Sides.